Hi, I am Fred from the requirementsengineer.com. In this video, I show you how to change the Draw.io page setup. You will learn how to adjust the paper size, orientation, grid size, background, shadow, adaptive colors, initial view, and Lightbox Animation. This is useful when your diagram should look cleaner, fit a document, work better in a presentation, or be prepared for printing. The important point is simple. Page setup affects the complete diagram page. It does not only change one selected shape. So let us go step by step. If you like practical tutorials about Draw.io, modeling, and requirements engineering, please subscribe and hit the bell so you do not miss the next videos. What is Draw.io? Draw.io, also known as diagrams.net, is a flexible diagramming tool. I use it for flowcharts, process diagrams, UML models, system diagrams, and many other visuals. I can drag shapes onto the canvas, connect them with arrows, and add labels. As a result, Draw.io helps me turn complex information into clear diagrams. In this example, I use a simple diagram to show how the page setup changes the complete visual frame. Why should I change the Draw.io page setup? I change the page setup when the default page does not fit my diagram. For example, a wide process model often works better in landscape format. A vertical process can work better in portrait format. A presentation usually works well with 16:9. The page setup also helps me control the grid and the background. That makes the diagram easier to align, easier to read, and more professional. Let's start. Step 1. First, I open my diagram in Draw.io. Then I go to the top menu and click File. After that, I select Page Setup. Now Draw.io opens the Page Setup dialog. Here I can change the main page settings in one place. I can see paper size. I can choose portrait or landscape. I can adjust the grid size. I can change the background. I can configure adaptive colors. I can change the initial view. And I can edit Lightbox Animation. When I'm done, I click Apply. Step 2. I choose the paper size. The paper size dropdown controls the page format. Draw.io offers many common formats. For example, I can choose A4, A3, A2, A1, A0, US letter, US legal, 16:9, 16:10, or 4:3. For normal documentation, I often use A4. For larger process models, I may use A3. For presentation, I often choose 16:9 because it fits modern screens well. If the predefined formats do not fit, I choose custom. Then I can enter the width and the height manually. I can also select the units, such as points, inches, or millimeters. This is useful for special formats and layouts. For example, I may need a diagram for a website banner, a workshop printout, or a custom documentation format. Step 3. I can set portrait or landscape. Portrait gives me a vertical page. Landscape gives me a wide page. I choose portrait when my diagram grows from top to bottom. I choose landscape when my diagram grows from left to right. This small setting can make a diagram much easier to read. Step 4. I adjust the grid size. The grid size field controls the spacing of the grid. The default value here is 10. In this example, I enter 20, then I click Apply. You see the change. Now the grid becomes larger. A smaller grid helps me align details more precisely. A larger grid helps me create cleaner spacing between shapes. However, the grid is only a work aid. It helps me build the diagram, but it should not distract from the content. Step 5. I change the background. In the page setup dialog, I click Change next to Background. Now Draw.io opens the background dialog. Here I can drag in an image. I can paste an image URL, or I can choose a local file. I can also adjust the width and the height of the background. In this example, I use fill color for a solid background and for demonstration purposes. I choose red as an example. The effect is very clear, but in real business diagrams, I would use such strong colors carefully. A strong background can reduce readability. For professional diagrams, I usually prefer light and calm colors. Step 6. I change the background color from the diagram sidebar. I use the right sidebar. Then I go to choose color. I choose white to get the previous view. Step 7. I add and remove a shadow. The background dialog also includes a shadow option. A shadow can make the page stand out more. This can look useful in a presentation. However, I use it carefully. For documentation, I often prefer a cleaner look. Step 8. I choose adaptive colors. The page setup dialog also includes adaptive colors. The available options include default, automatic, simple, and none. In most cases, I keep the default setting. This helps me avoid unexpected color changes. I only change this option when I have a clear reason. Step 9. I configure initial view. The page setup dialog also includes initial view. This option is useful when I want Draw.io to open the diagram in a specific review state. For example, I may use it when I work with comments, feedback, or review workflows. In most simple diagrams, I do not need to change this setting. However, it can be helpful when several people check the same diagram. Then the initial review setting can support a clearer review process. So I treat this option as a collaboration setting. I only change it when the diagram is part of a real review workflow. Step 10. I configure Lightbox Animation. The page setup dialog also includes Lightbox Animation. This feature matters when the diagram is shown in Lightbox mode. When I click Edit, Draw.io opens the Lightbox Animation dialog. Here I can define how the diagram behaves during a presentation. This can help guide viewers through a diagram. But I only use animation when it improves understanding. These were the configuration settings of page setup in Draw.io. Now let me summarize the workflow. I open my Draw.io diagram. I click File. I choose Page Setup. Then I adjust the paper size, orientation, grid size, background, shadow, adaptive colors, initial view, and Lightbox Animation. After that, I click Apply. Changing the Draw.io page setup helps me create clearer and more polished diagrams. It helps me prepare diagrams for documentation, printing, presentation, and client communication. The key idea is simple. Use page setup to control the complete diagram page. Choose the settings that support readability and avoid visual effects that distract from the diagram content. If this video helped, please support the channel, like the video, and subscribe for more Draw.io tutorials. Thank you very much. Also tell me in the comments, which page setup option do you use most often? Paper size, grid size, background color, or presentation settings? Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.